Okay, great. We're back again with Kevin Templin. He's the integration manager for the Space Shuttle Program's Transition and Retirement Office. Once again, Kevin, thanks again for taking time out and
Thanks for
joining
having me.
us. And we'll pick back up a little bit. We covered a lot of course, there's thousands of components coming off the vehicle to preserve and that type of thing. Do you know if the engineering community has learned anything yet? Have you heard anything from, I guess they're called STS Last, that kind of
That
group?
was kind of an internal name we gave them, kind of a mission name, but it's just the whole idea with that was retention of hardware for either further engineering knowledge, skill development type of thing, or future use. There's some thought that some of these parts might actually have some uses on some smaller projects, or as we've mentioned, even larger ones like SLS. So they really haven't had time. We just finished processing Discovery, and the other two vehicles, Atlantis and Endeavor, that are done at KSC, are still undergoing the
Right.
work to remove some of this hardware and get it ready for display. So the hardware is still being shipped out. So if any of the work's done, it's been very little, and that's really more future work for the engineering community.
Right. Well, obviously it's painful anytime you retire an operational vehicle to move on to the future programs that NASA's working on. But these orbiters, Discovery, of course, being delivered first, but these orbiters still have a mission, an
Yes, they do.
educational mission, an opportunity for people to see them that never have. And you've kind of been involved going around to these sites where
Hmm.
we're going to deliver them. Um, is that the message you're getting from those museum folks when you have been meeting with
It
them?
is. It is. They're actually working together in some respects to try and make their displays complementary. And so, if you'll, when you see them in their final display sites, you're going to see things like at Air and Space Museum. They'll have the vehicle on it, wait on wheels, as if it's the roll to a stop at the end of a mission on a
Right.
runway. Um, the Intrepid Sea Air and Space Museum intends to take Enterprise and put it on display as if it were on final approach. So you have one landing. Then Kennedy Space Center, which will have Atlantis, has a display designed that would show the vehicle with payload bay doors open as if it's on orbit during the mission. And then the California Science Center has a pretty ambitious plan to try and mount Endeavor in the vertical as if it's ready to launch.
Wow.
So
So that is all three different phases of
very
a
very different
orbiter
phases,
flight.
right?
Very interesting. Um, well, let's move on now. Of course, we're getting ready for Discovery's uh, trip
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
final trip to its home at the Air and Space Museum,
That's right.
and I know you guys have had a ton of meetings, and of course, you've just had a meeting to sort of set the stage for the ferry flight, right? How did that go?
It went really well. It was orbiter rollout review, which the program's had many rollout reviews over the course of the life of the program. This one's a little different because of the things we've already mentioned here. The configuration of the vehicles in is different. These rollout reviews are always held to make sure that the work we said we had to do at the beginning of the processing flow was actually accomplished, and anything we ran into in between was solved appropriately. This one went very smoothly. It's like you said, a little bit bittersweet. It's a big milestone. This vehicle is about ready to be backed out of the orbiter processing facility, and its next
Yeah, and
big
I think
milestone is to ferry.
you have a
We
photo
do.
of
We have a photo here
Discovery.
of Discovery.
Yeah, there you go.
You kind of see it from the end there, but you see the tail cones installed. So if things were going well, well, things did go very well. We're going to roll the vehicle over to the vehicle assembly building and store it there until mid-April when we're ready to ferry off to the Air and Space Museum. So this vehicle is buttoned up and ready for display, basically.
Right. So, of course, Discovery going to the Air and Space Museum outside Washington D.C.,
Hmm.
and then, of course, and we're going to pick up Enterprise, which has been there for a while,
Right. This
and
one's kind of unique because we delivered Enterprise to the Air and Space Museum in 1985, and it's been in their possession since then. And so we're going to end up picking up a vehicle from a non-NASA facility and ferrying it off to its
and there's
final
your
site.
picture that shows it under crane. That's one thing I wanted you to touch on is
Hmm.
is we don't have the permanent mate demate devices that are located in
Right.
California and Florida, and so we have to do a unique operation for
We definitely
right.
do. We People are used to seeing the mate demate device at the Kennedy Space Center or even the one out at Dryden Flight Research Center, where we sometimes land at the end of mission, and it makes it very easy for us, relative, right? Everything is relative. Easy for us to mate the vehicles up and to offload the vehicles when we need to do that at those sites. But the sites we're going to do not have these facilities, so we actually have a contingency set of hardware if we ever needed to do a transatlantic abort, that sort of thing, that we could use this hardware to load up the orbiters on the carrier aircraft and bring it back to the Kennedy Space Center. We've used the hardware before, but it's been a long time. The last time we actually used that hardware was when we delivered Enterprise to the Air and Space Museum in 1985. So we've had some dress rehearsals with the hardware down at the Kennedy Space Center, make sure that procedures, we understand them, we know how to operate this. And we'll be using this hardware at every one of the sites we ferry a vehicle to. So when we go to Dulles, we'll have this hardware erected to offload Discovery, and then we will have it in place to load up Enterprise. And we'll have to take all that ground support equipment down, send it up to to JFK International in New York, put it back together to offload Enterprise.
Right.
And we'll send it all out to California to LAX and do the same thing to offload Endeavour out there. So this picture, I think, was actually from an offload that we did in 1984 at Mobile for the World's Fair.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's when we took Enterprise out there. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. You know, it's a lot of work that's going on to get these vehicles ready. It's almost like processing for a flight, and of course, it is an operational mission to get them to their final display sites at all of these museums.
It definitely has that feel of operations, even though the end game here is a little different than a ascent to orbit. We're operating under the same sort of rules and procedures. So.
All right. What's next for you when this all wraps up? Probably toward the end of the year or
I've
so.
had that question a lot, and to be honest with you, with so much activity right now, I haven't had a lot of time to focus on that. But the agency has a lot of things going on going forward from Space Shuttle. The station is up and operational, and we have the Orion space capsule being developed here at the Johnson Space Center, and then the Space Launch System. So a lot of things I can go look at. I'm not sure where I'll end up landing in the end, but I'll need to start focusing on that probably this summer after we get a couple of these ferries under our belt.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you stopping by, Kevin, to kind of give us an update on all the activity that's been going on with the orbiters as they wind up their service, obviously, and head out to all the museums. Kevin Templin, the Integration Manager for the Space Shuttle Program's Transition and Retirement Office. Again, Kevin, thanks a lot for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.